Hi, I'm Steve Bohlert, the author of Universalist Radha-Krishnaism, The Way of Natural Devotion. I'm going to give you an introduction to myself and how I came to write this book that combines both Hindu and Christian traditions of spirituality. This is an eclectic book, an eclectic path to the divine. So how did I come to write this? What qualifies me to give this new spiritual philosophy? Well, in 1967 I became a disciple of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, the founder of the Western Krishna movement, and in 1970, I was initiated into a monastic order, the Tridandi Goswami order by him. And then from 1971 to 74, I spent most of that time in India, almost 3 years, living as a Hindu monk. Much of that time was spent in the sacred town of Vrindavan, where Radha and Krishna enjoyed their transcendental pastimes when incarnate upon the earth, according to the Bhagavad Puran and other literatures of this line of teaching. I really loved living in Vrindavan, which is considered to be a transcendental abode, a place of pilgrimage, and a great place to develop love of Radha-Krishna. However, as a Westerner, it really wasn't my lot to spend my life there, although I considered it very seriously more than once. However, while I lived there, I was very fortunate to be befriended by Dr. O.B.L. Kapoor, a retired philosophy professor and principal of a college in India, as well as a great devotee of Radha-Krishna. He is the author of a number of books, and I used them in preparing my book also. At that time, I was under Bhaktivedanta Swami's leadership, and he taught a regulative devotional process which involved external ritualistic acts and acts of devotion and service on behalf of Radha-Krishna and the cause. Well, I knew there was something more to the tradition than that, and I was eager to taste it, because what this real essence of the Chaitanya tradition is to be able to taste and experience the love of Godhead, and that divine love is directed towards the personalities of Radha-Krishna as the representation of the divine in this path of natural devotion. Dr. Kapoor also introduced me to Gauranga Das Babaji, who actually led him on this path. And we sat down one afternoon and talked, and he was very helpful, giving me ideas, and even gave me some English mantras that I could chant until I could find someone to properly initiate me into this path. You know, he explained that it would be very difficult, since I was a disciple of Bhaktivedanta Swami. No one wanted to go across him and, kind of interfere with one of his disciples without his permission. So that was the understanding, that there was only one person who might be able to help me, and that was Lalita Prasad Thakur, who was living in Birnagar in West Bengal, in the home where his father Bhakti Vinod Thakur was born. Perhaps not the exact same home, but on the same property, because he came from an aristocratic family and there was a large estate there. And Bhakti Vinod was a great saint and a prolific writer of about 100 books, and he passed on this knowledge to his son and disciple, Lalita Prasad Thakur, who was 92 years old when I first met him in 1973. At first, he wouldn't deal with me either without the permission of Bhaktivedanta, and he had already denied that. I had asked him, along with Dr. Kapoor's assistance, and he said, no, we don't do that. So it came to where I had to approach Lalita Prasad surreptitiously, and I made a big circuit around India, and devotees and Bhaktivedanta's movement lost track of me, and I made my way to Lalita Prasad. I told him, look, no one knows I'm here. I need you, no one else can teach me this. I'm begging you, please help me. Teach me this path. And so he did. I spent a couple of weeks with him, learning the path of natural devotion. This is a path whereby one creates a perfect spiritual body that one can interact with Radha-Krishna in and be with them eternally. It's like pre-visualization of what you would like life in the next life to be like. Lalita Prasad taught me this process of visualizing myself as an associate of Radha-Krishna, one of their girlfriends, in fact, and it's a very wonderful practice that I've been doing since 1974, so that's, 42 years now, and I see the results in my life. And this is a process that has deep roots within the Hindu spiritual tradition, especially the line that was started by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about 500 years ago. Janava Thakurani and her adopted son Ramchandra carried on the line from Nityananda, and it came down to me through a disciplic succession. And after spending 2 weeks teaching this process to me, Lalita Prasad, and this is a very esoteric, not widely known process. As you can imagine, I'm in India, I'm a monk, I can't find anyone to teach me except this one person, so how hard is it? Anyway, I'm making it available to you now in one simple book, and here's some videos to supplement the book. Anyhow, Lalita Prasad, when he was done teaching me, he sent me on my way and said, why don't you go back to the West where you're more needed? And he gave me a piece of paper that had his father's disciplic succession on it and all the details of their spiritual identities. And he said, why don't you add your name to the list after mine, and this can be the authority under which you preach these things. So that's what I am doing today. I'm carrying on that instruction from my spiritual teacher, Lalita Prasad Thakur, and I'm so blessed to have had him in my life. I came back to the West and led a varied life over the years, trying to spread the message as best I could. However, in 1984, I joined the United Church of Christ in Ashland, Oregon, and it was a very wonderful, progressive congregation engaged in justice ministries and very eclectic and open-minded. And after several years as a leader within the congregation, in 1988, I enrolled in San Francisco Theological Seminary, and for 3 years I studied and earned a Master of Divinity degree and got a terrific progressive Christian education. San Francisco Theological Seminary was one of the schools in a consortium called the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley, California, where I lived. And there were many leading progressive Christian scholars involved in that community. People such as Matthew Fox, Bishop John Shelby Spong, Marcus Borg, and other notable Christian authors who present a very progressive and enlightened view of spirituality. These are the kind of people that Bhaktivinoda Thakur would have called essence seekers. He liked people like this too, people like Emerson, Channing, and Parker, American transcendentalists, members of the Unitarian Christian movement. And he was very much influenced by this type of Christian thought and appreciated it very much. He appreciated the analytical insights that were given to Scripture through a rational approach. And that's what I learned in seminary. I learned a rational, intellectual approach to spirituality, like Bhaktivinoda had practiced, one that was able to separate belief and faith, and more seeing what is through direct perception. Because really, that's what Bhaktivinoda and I feel are the essence of spiritual realization and the communication of spiritual truth through direct perception. We need to not just hear about spirituality or read about spirituality or think about spirituality, but experience spirituality deep within ourselves in order to have a real experience. So in seminary, I learned how to combine that spiritual experience with rational insight and understand the historical perspective of the Scripture and then interpret it for today. I learned a very rough and ready kind of preaching in which I was taught to have the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in the other and make the sermons relevant for the people sitting in the pews today. And of course, isn't that what it's really all about? Making it relevant for people today. After graduating seminary in 1991, I was ordained in the United Church of Christ and served 3 churches in Iowa, North Dakota, and Michigan, giving me a firm grounding in American culture within a Christian context. And so I'm very much at home in both East and West. However, the Christian ministry didn't meet my expectations either, and so I resigned in 2002 and started an independent ministry in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where we were living. And then in 2005, my wife and I moved to the big island of Hawaii. We live in a small subdivision in the jungle in a very remote area. This is the hermitage I've always wanted. I live here in a beautiful natural environment that invigorates me and gives me life. And after living here for several years, I was ready to publish the first edition of Universalist Radha-Krishnaism. And that was in 2009, and the second edition came out in 2011. Universalist Radha-Krishnaism, the way of natural devotion. We'll be talking about that in further episodes of this series.